Tobias.
Yes.
Hey, how are you,
Hey
dude?
there. I'm good. How are you doing?
I am doing excellent, thank you. I believe if I'm looking at your tour schedule, are you up in Canada right now?
Yes.
Oh, very nice, very nice. How's the French? Good?
You mean the French-speaking people up here, or my French?
Your French. Oh, they're fine. They've
Yeah.
nailed the language. It was really yours I was worried about.
Okay, no, my French is so and so. Not very good, actually. Unfortunately, not. I wish I spoke more French, because we do occasionally not only hit the parts of Canada where they speak French, but we're actually doing quite well in France. So we do spend time there. So it would be in place to get my chops up.
Hey, so let me ask you this. Is there a place in the world where Ghost isn't doing well?
I think that the great unknown would be parts of Asia, actually,
Oh,
because
okay.
we have simply we haven't toured there yet. Like, I'm talking more like, Indonesia, Malaysia, places like that where you can tour. As opposed to other parts of the world where, it's a sort of a no-go zone, unfortunately. Yeah, but that might change in the future, depending on, war situations and all that stuff. But whereas I believe, obviously, there's a great number of not only hard rock and metal fans in these parts of the world, but bands, big bands tend to go to Thailand, Singapore, and stuff like that. But it just never materialized. And so now it's a little bit of like, should we try to do that? Because but still, we've also managed to get the show up to a level that sometimes makes it a little behemoth-y when it comes to like trying out new things.
Sure.
Because people know, I, as a director of the play, sort of have my wishes of how I want it to be executed, and I think that people who had been waiting for years for us to come want to have the same thing as everyone else, and that might not necessarily be the easiest thing to pull off.
Yeah,
So,
I get that.
but overall, I think that we're doing quite okay on a worldwide basis.
Well, I mean, hell, you crashed Spotify the other day. I feel like things are going pretty good. At least the demand is there. If you're crashing Spotify, you've done something right.
Yes, yeah, we kicked that off the list.
Hey, so let me ask you this, Tobias. Like we talk about like the demand, and it was the fan Q&A that everything got crashed down. And coming off of this record specifically, the reviews, whether it's for the tour, whether it's for the record, like everything has been so positive. Is like you talk about like being a metal band or stuff like that. Do you get angry at times, or does it make you laugh at times when people try to figure out exactly what little area to put you guys into?
No, definitely not angry. It's that is not my problem, really. I don't have a problem with people having a problem with it. It's just if I want to be the most super positive person ever and just see everything from a half full sort of perspective, it's like a lot of, since most things today is measured by activity, Spotify activity, online activity, whatever.
Sure.
As opposed to 30 years ago when it was sales. Like one record sold was one unit, and that counted. But nowadays everything is about content and activity. The one thing that people, especially those who aren't really chatting about like how good they think we are, but how bad they think we are, that adds to the activity. So it's actually a good thing.
Right.
So keep on talking. It's all good, all fine.
Hey, so if you take Impera, right, the record, and you go back 12 years ago. Is it harder now to write a record, or was it easier? I read something, and you tell me if this is right, okay, Tobias? When you talked about the first record, the first Ghost record, you said all those songs were written very spontaneously, playful with no expectations. You had very little. You had friends, you had loves, and a guitar. Is it harder now because of where the band is?
Yes. It is harder to come up with new things that is supposed to either fit in, depending on how you see it, fit into the context whilst expanding it. And it's like working on a long several seasons of a series. You have to add characters. You have to add twists to the characters that will, to the story that will make sense. So for every season you write, the harder it gets to sort of, unless you've done the most sensible thing, which most creators of series haven't done, that you begin backwards. You start with the ending and then just work your way back to
Right.
to a start. And the only series that I can ever come up with that I believe is written that way would be Breaking Bad. I don't know if that is the case, but that really felt like, okay, this is the ending. This was not forced. And it feels a little bit like that when you're writing records, and especially when you're I don't know if you call it niched, but yeah, we're sort of niched. And storytelling, it is actually harder in one way of looking at it. On the other hand, I decided already writing the second record that I was not going to make identical records.
Right.
So, and so far, despite having been an ongoing debate for the last at least 10 years since the second record came, if it's a good or not, people keep shouting out the same thing. So obviously it's doing something. And but from people who are interested in the band and like the band, it seems like there's a little bit of carte, maybe not blanche, but beige at least, to keep on exploring, which feels a little bit more liberating than it would have been if we were synonymous with just one beat.
At what point did you feel like that Ghost had kind of crossed that line and was starting to make the break? Like, is it when bands like Metallica start taking you out on the road, or like, did you know long before then that it was going to go?
It's hard to answer this question without sounding, because now obviously we are after the fact of many of these things, and of course we've done a lot of make or break moves ever since, but it feels like a lot of the biggest steps we took or that was taken for us was the ones that was taken very early on.
Right.
Just because it was literally like an overnight success. I knew already in 2008 when I was recording the first, like the most part of the majority of the material on the first record was already recorded and demoed in 2008. And even though it was a small circle of people who'd heard it, there was a reaction amongst those people that made me feel confident that this is music that will move people. Of course, people did that. That did not there was no specificity as to how many people or to whatever extent it would commercially do well. But I knew that there was definitely, this was a project worth writing investing time in writing material for, because it seems to have an effect on people. So I knew it was going to have an effect. And then fast forward 2 years, and we published our songs on MySpace, and the overnight success that was on MySpace really proved that from nothing, 20 people having heard it, to 2,000 overnight, something like, I don't know exactly remember the number, but
Right.
it was clear that it was going to affect people. And that felt like the biggest step ever, because before that, I had been in bands that wasn't really going anywhere. Had a somewhat of a small underground sort of chatter, or but never really had any overnight successes, if that is what you want. But of course, as anyone who chose to put a guitar on your belly, you do it because you want recognition. You want to go somewhere, and everybody in the band always want to get signed. They want an A&R to come in and you can quit your jobs.
Right.
That's what you want to hear. That's not exactly how it played out, but almost.
Is it true, Tobias? I was reading about show days, and you come across as, and from stuff that you read, is that consistency is a big thing for you, and scheduling is a big thing for you. And so on show days, it sounds like it's a full day. It's not just the show at night. And I think you kind of go well, you know what? We're not 20 anymore, but there's a full day of preparation, of making sure you're moving around, of making sure your body's going, of making sure that you play the drums for an hour to kind of get yourself set up, to get into makeup, to kind of get into that mindset, that it turns into a full, I don't want to say a full day affair. I mean, after all, you're playing music for a living, but it's just not as easy as, hey, let's throw on some jeans and let's go get on stage and away we go.
No, it's the day starts way earlier, and there's a prep work that is needed for everything to work at the end of the night. So as much as I'm sort of not regarding this as a job, it is definitely a very scheduled and not the sort of job that you can call in sick for.
Right.
And if you don't do the job in the right order, it's kind of like being a carpenter or a painter. If you don't do step one, A and B, you can't just start at B and then hope for the fabric to stick on the wall if you didn't do the glue part. So it is a very, I love it, so I have no problem with it, but it does require a lot of motivation, and at the end of the day, it can at points be a little bit taxing. More from an emotional standpoint. After a while, once you've done the tour for quite a while, you start getting some weird fatigue that is not necessarily based on you wanting to sleep. It is just that you're filled with your quota of I can't take another spoon of impressions.
Right.
Because it's impressions all day. I mean, this is like a complete luxury. I wouldn't even say a problem, but one thing that I think a lot of people on tour don't necessarily think about, but one of the reasons why you get very tired is because you are constantly in new. There's a certain repeat, but there is a constant learning phase. Just being in new buildings all the time, so you're constantly sort of absorbing new ground, new rooms, new things, new directions. How to go from your bus to over here, and this sounds really mundane, and like, oh, what a joke. But it's stuff like that. It added just the mobility takes a toll on you. So after 6 or 7 weeks, you're sort of, your brain is sort of not functioning very well anymore.
But there's no way that you're done for the rest of the year.
Um, the way this cycle is planned is that it's going to stretch into the fall of 2023. Originally, we were meant to do a European tour now at the end of the year, and we were supposed to do an American thing at the beginning of the next. But we actually decided not to do it simply because there's just too much traffic right now. And there's so many bands. Every band on the planet, big and small, is taking up the airwaves, the real estate, and that has led to you can't get tour buses, you can't get trucks, you can't get lighting, you can't do anything. And right now, we are the cause of other bands not being able to use the 9 trucks that we have. So let's just bow out, just stay away, and let other bands do their thing and not be part of the problem more than we already are. And which felt like a very sober decision, especially now, with the fall, not being too dramatic here, but, Europe is going through an enormous energy crisis right now.
Right.
If it's not the fuel prices, I think that there might be venues that needs to sort of pick and choose a little what events they are going to, run their generators for. And it just feels like you have to sort of think about the whole context of things. We managed to get a record out that did really well. We have, as soon as this tour is done in a few days, we've done 70 shows this year. That's fantastic. Everything is really cool. I have no complaints whatsoever. So let's just be a little bit sober and do things right. And yeah, we'll come back strong in March.
All right. Very good. Well, I'll tell you what, you're lucky. You're lucky I'm not your manager, because I'd have about 140 shows lined up for you, because 10% of something is a lot more than 10% of nothing.
Just because we're not on the road doesn't mean that we're not doing anything.
You're a good man, Tobias. Impera is out and available now. Obviously, Ghost is on the road. Hey, Tobias, I really appreciated the time. It was very nice talking to you, my friend.
Okay.
Later.